Today is the day all teams are able to sign free agents in Major League Baseball, and it is going to be a hectic offseason with the Mets being involved. The Dodgers, the reigning world champions, are going to make some moves. The Yankees are going to make moves. The Blue Jays, Giants, all these teams are going to want to make that big splash, and it all begins. Obviously, if you couldn't tell, I am a Mets fan, so I will be a little biased towards a lot of our offseason moves, but this offseason starts and ends with Juan Soto. Nothing is going to happen until Juan Soto signs his deal. I'm hoping that this thing doesn't go on past November into the Christmas time, even into January. As we've seen in past off seasons, just especially last year, there were some real big name guys not signed through spring training. So let's just hope that wherever Juan Soto signs, it will be in a relatively quick deal, whether that's at the end of November, even mid-November, but that's getting a little too greedy based on how how long the contract's going to be and how much money that he's going to be making. But let me start with the Mets here. If you're the Mets, this is the deal you got to make. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. If Juan Soto doesn't sign with the Mets, the only excuse the Mets have to have here is that he wanted to take less money elsewhere. The Mets cannot be outbid. They have to be the highest bidder for Juan Soto joining this team. There can't be any excuses. Steve Cohen bought this team and wanted to build sustained success. This is one of those players at 26 years old that doesn't come available very often. If you're going to spend money on somebody, this is the player you do it. He saw how he does it in the postseason. Consistently lengthens your lineup, although he didn't do it with the Yankees. But this is the guy you want to get to add to your team for the next 10-plus seasons. So that's where I would start. You sign Soto. Now the Mets are going to need some pitching depth after that. We'll get to the lineup and everything like that. But the next move I'm doing is I'm contacting the Brewers, who have put Devin Williams on the trade block. Excuse me. And I'm going to go get Devin Williams from the Brewers. Prospects are prospects. Once you see my videos a lot more often, you're going to understand my view that I feel prospects are prospects. Until they hit the major leagues, they are prospects. So you go get Devin Williams. You make him your eighth inning guy with Edwin Diaz. And if Diaz seems to struggle, or if Diaz seems to go through one of those ruts that he kind of goes through, you now have another closer to put in Edwin Diaz's place. You make Diaz the eighth inning guy. It doesn't matter how it gets done. We need a World Series championship in the next couple of years with this team, as Steve Cohen is building it now. Devin Williams is the next move. Now that the Mets are going to need some starting pitching, I would call up Corbin Burns, see what you can get done with him. You could bring back Sean Manaea. You're getting Kodai Senga back on a full healthy season next year. So you have David Peterson coming back. So you're going to have a little bit of depth if you add the necessary pieces you should add during the free agency period. Now, just because Steve Cohen's a billionaire, doesn't mind going over the luxury tax and doing all this stuff, doesn't mean you go spend the money like it's not owed to these players at some point. You're going to need to spend the money smartly. And that's why I have faith that David Stearns is here to keep the Mets and to keep Cohen on a narrow path. Not like when Billy Epler was here and they went out, and I saw it and I understood what they did by signing Max Scherzer and Justin Verlander, because they wanted the short-term fix on the veteran guys to see if they could win the World Series quick. Right? Unfortunately, it didn't work out, but luckily it was short term. When you do I love short-term deals. I love one-year deals, even two-year deals. I'm a huge fan of, because it gives that player the incentive to play harder now, or not play harder, but just to kind of go out and earn the next contract. So you saw that with Sean Manaea, who took the 2-year deal with a player option. He benefited from that, and the Mets benefited from that because they got the best out of Sean Manaea, and he's going to make himself he's going to get himself a nice contract this offseason. So the top targets for the Mets going into this offseason, in this order that I would go after if I'm David Stearns and Steve Cohen: Juan Soto 1, Devin Williams from the Brewers 2, Blake Trinon from the Dodgers 3, Corbin Burns, free agent, pitched for the Orioles last year, 4, And then I would look into bringing Sean Manaea back as well. And other than that, there are a ton of guys that the Mets could go out and get. You can go out and get yourself a Teoscar Hernandez. You could go out and you could trade for a Vladimir Guerrero Jr. if you want to get crazy. You could also go out and get Alex Bregman for third base, move Vientos to your permanent DH. There's a ton of options for this team that they have the financial the capabilities to do now. They have a ton of flexibility with all the money that just came off the books. So it's where I'm at. That's where I'm at with this team. There's no excuses anymore. There's no excuses for years. And it's not like the Wilpons were cheap. Back in the 2000s, before the Madoff scandal, this team spent a lot of money. They just didn't spend it correctly. There's a big difference. We complained for over a decade about how the Mets didn't spend money in the offseason. Now they have somebody who's going to spend the money. And now they have a general manager in David Stearns who's going to spend it smartly. The Mets have so much flexibility now with all the money that just came off the books. They can go get Juan Soto, Corbin Burns, Devin Williams, Alex Bregman. They could trade for a Vladimir Guerrero Jr. They have so much flexibility on this roster now. And with money to be spent, there's no excuse anymore. You have to build a championship team. They rebuilt the farm system last year. They got themselves to the National League Championship Series this year, 2 games away from the World Series. Do you want to bring back Pete Alonso? That's another question for another day. But if you could go out and you could if you could trade for like a Vlad Guerrero Jr., bring in a Bregman, get me a starting pitcher, get a Juan Soto, and these things are all realistic. Not just pulling it out of my you-know-what. Pete Alonso's the big one, right? Pete Alonso's the biggest free agent on the team. Do you bring him back? What does he want back? What will he take? Will he take a discount? He already turned down 7 years, 158 last offseason. I thought that was more than fair. Market value is going to determine what Pete Alonso signs for. I don't think it's going to be as much as he thinks it's going to be honest. I think Pete Alonso, if Pete Alonso goes out and gets like a 10-year, $200+ million deal, more power to him. As great as that home run was for the Mets, I don't want to sign Pete Alonso to a big long-term deal. I can't do it. I can't sign him to a 10-year deal. There's too many times where Pete Alonso just goes away. Right? This year, more than ever, he just went away in so many spots. And as great as that home run was in Milwaukee, it masked a lot of the problems for a lot of Mets fans. Right? We cannot forget, though, how he came up in a lot of spots this year and just didn't come through. Right? Didn't come through at all. And up until that home run in Milwaukee, he was doing it in that whole series. Up until that home run, that's what he was doing. So we can't forget that. If you could get Alonso back here on a 5-year deal and $150 million, I don't know, whatever the price is, I'd prefer shorter term deals over these. When it comes to these long-term deals, only certain players should be able to get those deals. You don't want to give those out to a 30, 31, 32-year-old person. Juan Soto is the perfect example of a guy that you hand out that $10+ million year deal to because he's 26 years old. These guys don't come available very often. Nowadays, they're either signed early before arbitration, and teams don't even let them get to free agency until about 31 years old. Now guys are coming available, like Juan Soto is available at 26. Bryce Harper was available at a young age. Manny Machado was available at a younger age. More guys are starting to become available, and they're letting themselves get past their arbitration years and hit free agency. Juan Soto did it perfectly. Juan Soto had multiple opportunities to sign long-term, beautiful deals with their teams. He turned down one from the Nationals. I'm pretty sure he turned down one with the Padres, and I'll be almost certain if the Yankees didn't throw numbers and years at him and his agent Scott Boras, and they just kind of said, we'll wait till free agency. This is a huge offseason for the Mets. This is a huge, huge offseason for the New York Mets. They could solidify themselves into that tier of Dodger-esque. There's only the Dodgers are like the one team in baseball right now that are just doing it perfectly. They always seem to have the right prospects for trades. They always seem to get the guy they want. When the Dodgers are involved for a player, they always seem to get the guy they want. No matter if it's a free agent, no matter if it's a trade, they just seem to get the guy. I need the Mets to turn into that, right? I need the Mets to turn into the team that everybody else hates. Everybody hated the Yankees when they were going through their dynasty. Those 90s, those 2000s teams, everybody hated the Yankees. I want to become that team that everybody else hates and complains about, because you know you're doing something right if that's the case. So I think the Mets will sign Juan Soto. Stay tuned for more baseball coverage on this channel, mostly Mets. I'll probably do some Yankees with a couple special guests coming on once in a while. So stay tuned, guys. Thanks for watching. Share, like, subscribe if you can. See you on the next one.